The sun has never shone brighter on an early Saturday morning as the massive NBC studio comes into view. Inside, reporters are deep in discussion when a cameraman yells, "We are live." Instantly, everyone snaps into their professional mode. A young man, who could easily pass for a reporter, kicks off the segment with a warm greeting, then invites Jin Doha, a confident middle-aged woman, to talk about a business aimed at single-person households. Jin Doha could be mistaken for a 6-foot-tall Amazon goddess, elegant, poised, and self-assured. She thanks the host, introduces herself, and proudly reveals that she's the face behind the well-known Rent-A-Parent service. Meanwhile, a flashy car speeds onto the scene, driven like it's auditioning for Fast and Furious. But Do-hee doesn't even flinch. Calmly, she calls a sharply dressed young man, her match in style and presence. "Hey, sis," he says, picking up on the first ring. Before he can say more, she dives into a flurry of complaints about how she looked on the broadcast. He compliments her, then suggests she leave that kind of stress to her publicist, but Do-hee insists that being on TV is great for business. Jin Doha, 34, is a top-tier lawyer at Kim & Kong law firm. He walks with focus and purpose, naturally drawing attention from every woman he passes. He ignores the stares, instead pressing the issue. When will his sister finally give up the whole Rent-A-Parent thing? He arrives at his office, sinks into his chair, and keeps the conversation going. Do-hee explains how important her role is, especially to Sunmi, who's just starting middle school and needs a mother figure. Doha teases her, calling her a textbook role model. Still, he tells her to call if she ever needs help. She seizes the chance instantly, asking for a favor. His face falls with an exaggerated sigh. As usual, Do-hee's elegance turns heads, and someone nearby, maybe a fan, asks about her glamorous look. But she barely reacts, too busy pleading with her baby brother. She wants him to step in as a helper, just for a bit, since she's heading to Hong Kong for a vacation. Doha gasps in disbelief, but 44-year-old Do-hee, proud housekeeper and face of Rent-A-Parent, knows she can count on him. The scene shifts to a sleek yet simply designed apartment. But what really grabs attention is Doha, stepping out of a steamy bathroom. Dripping wet, with hair falling over part of his face, he could easily be mistaken for a Greek god or a Christian Dior model. As he pours himself a glass of water, he sighs, already regretting agreeing to Do-hee's favor, one he knows will come with stress. He pictures her "pity me" face and shakes his head. Still, he doesn't waste time and heads to his destination, Wonsung Apartments, which turns out to be much closer than he expected. As he walks in, he mentally runs through all the details Do-hee gave him about the client and the personal lives of the workers involved. Outside the client's door, he mutters a quick prayer about surviving this job, then presses the doorbell. But before the chime even fades, something unexpected happens. A brown dog darts toward him and crashes into his legs before he can react. "Mamang," a woman calls out, chasing after the pup. But it's too late, the little dog is already all over Doha, sniffing and licking his stunned face like he's an old friend. A red-haired woman rushes over and scoops up Mamang, apologizing for the chaos. Doha, now even wetter and slightly annoyed, brushes himself off. She introduces herself as Wonyi and adds with a smile that her name is easy to remember. It's spelled the same forwards and backwards. She invites him inside, carrying Mamang with her. As they settle in, Wonyi starts talking about a previous arrangement with someone named Sharon Stone, a name that makes Doha visibly uncomfortable. He quickly dismisses the thought and focuses on the task ahead. Moments later, he's fully dressed for the role, in a cute kitty print apron and matching scarf, looking like anything but a top lawyer. He asks what meal he should start with, but Wonyi, completely ignoring the question, shifts to something else entirely. She wants to know his nickname. Apparently, nicknames are a thing here, just like his sister mentioned. He takes a second to think, then finally offers one. But before he can explain, Wonyi excitedly cuts in, asking if it's an American name. "Qin Shi Huang," Doha blurts out in frustration. What happens next is unexpected. Wonyi bursts into laughter, nearly doubling over. When she finally calms down, she apologizes between chuckles. Still, she pushes again, asking what she should actually call him. He sighs and mutters, whatever, clearly not in the mood for her antics. While Doha wonders where on earth that name even came from, Wonyi offers to make him some iced tea. He politely declines, saying he'd rather finish the cooking first. Suddenly, she becomes curious about his height, stepping way too close to compare. He instantly flinches, pulling back with body language that screams personal space, please. She steps away but raises an eyebrow, asking if he's aware that Do-hee said the ingredients would be late, thanks to her last-minute call. Doha decides to clean up in the meantime, but Wonyi quickly announces she already cleaned the apartment before he arrived. That sets off a flicker of irritation in him. Meanwhile, Mamang tries to chew on a plant, and Wonyi rushes to stop the dog. Just as she does, Doha throws out the question, "Why did you call a helper?" Wonyi pauses, looking for the right excuse. She tilts her head and makes an innocent kitten face. Doha sighs and smacks his forehead, clearly annoyed at all he went through to get here, only to realize she doesn't seem to need any help. Mamang growls, clearly picking up on Doha's frustration. Wonyi tries to calm the pup, handing him a succulent leaf to nibble on. She then turns back to Doha and asks if he's okay with being called Mr. Chin. That only earns her an eye roll and a half-hearted shrug. He's too irritated to care. But Wonyi, completely missing the mood, continues the conversation, teasingly asking why she should call him Mr. if he's a single dad. Her cheeks flush a warm cherry red, and for a second, the tension shifts, the air heats up, something is brewing. But just when things start to feel intense, Wonyi flips the mood again. Boy or girl, she asks with a grin, wanting to know about his child. Doha is stunned by how fast she shifts the tone, but he answers. Before he can say more, a knock at the door interrupts, and Mamang starts barking wildly at whoever's outside. Wonyi tries to quiet him down, but Mamang is relentless. Doha steps in and heads for the door. Just as he opens it, a voice calls out, "Daddy!" A cute blonde girl flings herself at him, hugging him tight. She looks like she could be in high school, and the surprise on his face says it all. As the girl clings to him, Doha leans down and whispers, asking why she just called him Dad. She whispers back with a cheeky grin, saying it's to scare off any women who might try to flirt with him. Wonyi watches, wide-eyed, clearly caught off guard. The two play along, and Doha smoothly fits into the role. Wonyi, with her sparkling eyes, is completely taken by the act. "You two are so cute together," she gushes, totally charmed. "Sunmi." Doha calls out, addressing the blonde girl. He starts to explain that he's just filling in for her mom, but Sunmi cuts him off sharply. "Just do your job and leave," she snaps, arms crossed. Their moment is interrupted when Wonyi, unable to hold back her curiosity, jumps in. "So, what's your relationship?" she asks, raising an eyebrow. She gestures to welcome Sunmi inside, but the girl, now climbing all over Doha like a tree, shoots the redhead a cold look. "No thanks," Sunmi replies, claiming her imaginary mom is waiting downstairs. Confused, Wonyi repeats the word "mom" under her breath. But before things can spiral, Sunmi quickly reads the mood and throws in a wild announcement, "My parents are getting remarried again." Wonyi gasps in surprise, clearly not expecting that twist. Meanwhile, Sunmi sends a dagger-eyed glare at her acting dad just as he lowers her back to the ground. She holds the look a bit longer, then points her finger at him with a warning, "Be back home early. I'm watching you." Doha is left blinking, trying to figure out what just happened. Is this what puberty looks like? He wonders. Torn between texting Do-hee and getting dinner ready, he ends up choosing the kitchen. He grabs the bag Sunmi brought and begins unpacking. Still, Wonyi isn't done asking questions. Her eyes follow him, full of curiosity. "So, your ex-wife?" "Not Korean?" she asks, eyeing Sunmi's blonde hair and striking green eyes. Doha rolls his eyes but admits, "Yeah. She's half Korean." "I knew it." Wonyi gasps, practically glowing. Her cheeks turn a soft pink as she beams with joy. Then, getting a little sentimental, she adds, watching you too, it was kind of beautiful. Like a real family. She sighs and picks up a pink-covered book, flipping it open. Doha stays focused, cooking away while the clatter of kitchen tools and the hiss of steaming pots fill the air. After what feels like ages, he finally announces, "Side dishes are done." Then he peers over at her. "You finished the laundry in that time?" She shakes her head. "Nope. But maybe we can tag team it?" "Deal," he replies without hesitation. As he starts rambling about pairing side dishes with a main, something shifts under the table. He pauses, confused. When did she sneak under there? He wonders, but as he moves, his foot lands right on something soft. A yelp rings out. Doha jolts in shock and looks down to see Mamang, the dog, barking in pain. A single tear seems to roll from Mamang's eye. Doha immediately crouches down, flustered and apologetic. "I'm so sorry." "You're a good boy, okay?" "A good boy." The gentle words seem to calm the pup. Wonyi joins him, gently stroking Mamang. She quietly confesses, he's still healing. He was in a car accident a month ago and his real owner hasn't come back. So I'm keeping him for now. Then, out of nowhere, Doha notices red patches on Wonyi's skin, clear signs of an allergic reaction. That's when everything clicks. A quick flashback shows Wonyi sneezing the moment she welcomed him in. "Achoo," she had said cheerfully, completely unaware of what it meant. The idea of an allergy hadn't even crossed her mind, at least, not until he pointed it out. Still surprised, Doha asks how long she plans to keep Mamang. He gently suggests taking the dog to a shelter, figuring it might be better for both of them. Though his reasoning is fair, her expression doesn't budge. She finally admits her real reason: she's trying to find Mamang's original owner. "Big dogs are hard to rehome," she says, and giving up on him doesn't sit right with her. Cut to later that night, Wonyi lies on her bed, the stars twinkling outside her window. She's lost in thought, replaying the day's events. She leans toward Mamang's sleepy form, whispering, "Isn't Mr. Chin cute?" The words spill out without warning. Jolting upright, she starts unloading her inner thoughts to the dozing dog. She talks about how good Doha is with kids, how steady and calm he is, and wonders, what kind of amazing woman is his ex-wife, anyway? After a bit more tossing and turning, she finally drifts off to sleep with those questions still floating in her mind. Morning comes fast, sweeping the night away. The sky brightens, and Wonyi, dressed and ready for the day, heads towards Seocho Station with a not-so-subtle dread about the hours ahead. She clearly can't wait for the workday to be over, even though it's just started. After what feels like an eternity, she steps off the bus and shuffles through the sea of tired, half-asleep commuters. It's the classic Monday morning chaos. She enters a towering building and quickly makes her way to the elevator. Just as the doors are about to close, a voice calls out, "Hold the door." She pauses and lets them in. A man and a woman step into the elevator, thanking her. A moment of silence passes before the woman, clearly itching to talk, starts chatting. She introduces herself as an intern from Siran firm and mentions their office on the 4th floor. Her tone is overly bright, too much for Wonyi, who just offers a polite nod. As the elevator reaches the 4th floor, Wonyi offers a quick, "Nice to meet you," and slips out before the woman can say more. The man mutters a sarcastic comment about her rudeness. The brunette, feeling brushed off, launches into more detail, this time about Wonyi's job. The guy brings up a nickname, Android 8. Curious, he asks what that's about, and the brunette is thrilled to explain. Apparently, Wonyi earned that nickname for her robotic, emotionless demeanor. The guy agrees with a snort, but she doesn't stop there. Her words get a little sharper. She claims Wonyi isn't all that special, passing the bar doesn't make her some kind of genius. Moments later, our female lead is settled in the office beside her boss, but she barely gets a moment to breathe before a knock at the door announces someone in the waiting room, her sister. Her jaw nearly drops. Shock doesn't even begin to cover the look on her face. She quickly excuses herself and heads out, already dreading the encounter. With slow, Steady breaths like she's bracing for battle, she silently counts. 1, 2, 3, then bursts into the room. She yells at her sister without restraint, hurling question after question. How did she find her? Why is she here? And then, guess what happens? Her ever-calm, always irritating sister casually blows dust off her freshly filed nails, looks up, and accuses her of hiding away in a law firm. She stares at her with disbelief, commenting on her haircut and poking fun at the glasses Wonyi's wearing, especially since she knows her sister has perfect vision. Wonyi, losing patience with her rambling, snaps and tells her to just say why she's here. But at this point, we're as tired of the sister as Wonyi is. The sister groans, "Your office is so depressing." Wonyi, now sounding more serious, tells her to stop stalling. "I need 4,000,000 won," her sister blurts. That hits like a truck. Wonyi screams, "What?" Her dramatic sister launches into a monologue about signing up for an acting class, demanding the money immediately, as if that's a normal request. Wonyi can barely process the absurdity. But then it gets worse. Her sister drops a bomb. Sang-hyuk is back in Korea. The name alone makes Wonyi flinch, just slightly. Caught off guard, Wonyi stares. Her sister continues, saying Sang-hyuk is looking for her and wondering aloud if she should just tell him where she is. She fans herself dramatically, clearly trying to get under her sister's skin. Wonyi's thoughts spiral. What if he really finds her workplace? What then? But she doesn't get long to think. Her sister interrupts again, whining about how much she misses their brother. The woman in the suit, still calm, tells her to cool off by tying her hair up. But suddenly, she lunges forward, grabbing her and desperately demanding the money. Wonyi pulls back and yells at her to stop using Sang-hyuk as a scare tactic. She's not giving in. The actress grows even more furious. She stomps her feet wildly, loud enough to catch the attention of a few workers nearby. Realizing she's attracting too much attention, she quickly shifts into a calm, solemn mode. Wonyi doesn't let it slide. She reminds her just how easy it would be for Sang-hyuk to find her, especially since her sister managed to. With a firm voice, she tells her to leave and never show up at her office again. As night falls, our female lead walks into the Woonsung building, mumbling about how tired she is. Her phone rings, Rent-A-Parent Mobile flashes on the screen. She picks up immediately. The caller introduces herself as Sharon Stone and explains that she'll have to send a substitute for the next few weeks due to unforeseen circumstances. The call ends right as Wonyi arrives at her apartment. The moment she opens the door, her face lights up at the sight of Mamang. She rushes to him, and he runs toward her too. They fall into a happy tangle of hugs, licks, and laughter. Giggling, she asks him what he's been up to. But suddenly, a loud achoo escapes her. She apologizes to the dog, wishing she wasn't allergic, then groans about how hungry she is. Dragging herself to the fridge, she opens it to find, well, almost nothing. But there, sitting quietly, is a pot of leftovers. She remembers Doha mentioning it and grabs the pot like it's a treasure, silently begging that the food hasn't gone bad. Minutes later, she's devouring it with joy, already falling in love with whoever made it. Mamang joins her for a share, and she happily feeds him too. Between bites, she whispers her wish, if only Doha was the substitute. She clearly has a soft spot for handsome men. Finishing the food in silence, she heads to the shower. Now in her pajamas and ready for bed, she complains about how sticky and sweaty she feels. She considers turning on the air conditioner but quickly drops the idea. Debts don't pay themselves. Lying in bed, her mind drifts back to the office earlier that day. She recalls her sister's visit, the heated argument, and the promise she made. She agreed to lend the money, but only if her sister keeps Sang-hyuk far away for a full year. She even made her sign a loan agreement, just in case. 1 year of peace. That's all she wants. She doesn't want to see Sang-hyuk ever again. Cut to the next scene, and we're not even surprised to spot a familiar outfit. The actress from earlier is dancing around, singing about being a lucky girl. And who wouldn't, after getting 4,000,000 won? But wait, her victory is short-lived. A voice interrupts her, sharp and direct. A young man with similar colored hair steps in. She keeps singing, already knowing who it is, but stops when he shouts, "Kim Jun-hee." Then he demands to know where she's headed. Just when it seems like the sibling drama is enough, he throws in another jab, questioning her outfit and accusing her of being half-naked. She fires back with a snide remark about him not exactly being father material, which earns her a smack on the head. Ignoring her loud protest, he demands her ID. That only earns him more sass, so he grabs her by the neck, warns her to quit the theatrics, and pulls her along with a hard squeeze before finally letting go. Jun-hee yells at him to let her go but knows better than to act out when he finally does. She falls in step behind him, but of course, doesn't keep quiet. She mocks him for coming back to Korea just for military service. This time, though, she's more alert, and still mutters, "Jesus," when he lifts a hand to smack her again, even as he yells at her to mind her own business. Soon enough, they walk into a supermarket, but it's clear that speaking to Sang-hyuk is a crime. He barks at the poor sales staff who've done nothing but greet him. Jun-hee tells him to relax, which only drags her deeper into trouble as they reach the drinks aisle. She declares she won't spend a single one on drinks, which he takes as a green light to grab not just one bottle, but an entire crate. She shouts in confusion, but then he admits he wants an honest talk with his baby sister. Still, she knows better than to fall for his sudden sentimentality, so she suggests soju, which he happily grabs without question. Moments later, the siblings are lounging outside a fancy building, but the peace doesn't last long. Jun-hee catches him staring and calls him out, telling him to spit out whatever's on his mind. Instead, he questions if she's even old enough to drink. That backfires fast when she reminds him he's the one who handed her the drink, basically calling him slow. He glares at her like he wants to unalive her while she downs the drink like a champ, pushing all the right buttons. He switches gears, asking about her acting classes. That sends her into a coughing fit, spraying her drink everywhere. But that doesn't stop him. He moves on, demanding to know where the money's coming from. She casually admits it's from the stepmom, but he scoffs, reminding her the woman's dead broke. Trying to cover herself, she adds that the stepdad's footing the bills. He calls her out again, warning her to cut the lies since he already knows she got scammed by a record label, even from overseas. He's been keeping tabs. Then he finally gets to the real reason for this open discussion, Wonyi. He asks where she is. But Jun-hee puts on her best clueless act, playing dumb like the idiot he always says she is. Sang-hyuk's patience wears thin as he hisses at her. She panics and spins a lie about Miss Redhead going abroad to study. He leans in, demanding to know where exactly, but when she sticks to her act, he explodes, shouting and threatening to hit her. Right in the middle of all the chaos, an elderly woman appears on a balcony and cuts through the tension. She calmly tells Jun-hee to head to bed so she doesn't miss her morning class. Without a word, Jun-hee bolts inside, leaving her brother behind with his dark thoughts and unfinished business. Fast forward to the next day, and we find Do-ha in the kitchen, looking worn out as Wonyi fires off a stream of random questions. "I have an older sibling," he responds to the sibling inquiry, his face showing the toll of juggling work and life. He suggests she take a break while she eats, then sinks into the couch, quietly reflecting on the big favor he's doing for his sister. Meanwhile, Wonyi watches him with genuine concern, noting how tired he looks. Soon, she offers a solution, some kind of massage gear she thinks might help him feel better. She keeps talking about how great it is, but he barely listens. His thoughts drift to how professionally dressed she looks for someone her age. Before he can fully process that, she straps the device onto him and switches it on, snapping him back to the moment. Instantly, Do-ha starts to relax, the tension melting away, and he mentally notes he should probably buy one for himself. But just when it seems like she's done asking questions, she brings up another, how close he and his sibling are. He gives a casual answer, saying it's a typical brother-sister bond. That's not enough for her. She dives into a story about a money argument with her little sister from a few days back, laughing as she admits she ended up taking the money when asked. Then she shifts the topic again, wondering if his family ever makes his life harder. As he opens his mouth to respond, she seems to catch herself, quickly apologizes for prying, and hurries off to finish her meal. Doha barely reacts, too drained to fully take it in, slowly shutting down. Some time later, the sound of Mamang slurping and licking snaps him out of his daze. He glances at the wall clock, 9 p.m., and mutters an annoyed curse under his breath. Later on, Wonyi, comfortably reading on the bed, casually asks if he slept well. Doha quickly apologizes for dozing off on duty and wonders why she didn't wake him. But she just shrugs and says there was no point, he's clearly tired after taking care of his daughter alone. At that, he yells out in shock, flustered by the realization that she knows. She calmly asks again if he feels rested, but he cuts her off, reminding her that he's here to work, not rest. As he moves to get up, he notices the blanket draped over him and immediately asks what that's about. She explains, and he folds it neatly, saying he'll wash it the next time he comes over. Sensing tension, she nervously asks if he's mad. He doesn't respond directly. Instead, he says he's going to finish up and leave. But the moment he looks around and sees the spotless apartment, he shouts in disbelief. Miss Redhead, already feeling guilty, apologizes right away, for cleaning everything, even doing the dishes. Doha is left speechless for a moment, then tells her not to pay the service fee. He plans to explain everything to Sharon Stone himself. But Wonyi refuses and insists on paying. That sets him off. He yells, frustrated that she even hired a housekeeper when she clearly didn't need one. His words hit hard, and tears well up in her eyes. She just watches him in silence, visibly hurt. Unable to bear her crying, he sighs and says goodbye. Her face clouds with worry, unsure of what she did wrong. But before he leaves, he firmly reminds her again, not to pay the service charge, making his point clear. As soon as Doha steps out of the woozing building, he calls Do-hee. She answers on the first ring. She's weird, he says flatly, not realizing he's caught the attention of a group of older women nearby, all secretly swooning as he vents to his sister. Do-hee, intrigued, leans into the conversation and motions for her friends to bring over the watermelon. Curious, she asks what happened, and Doha launches into the full story. He complains about how Wonyi did all the chores, leaving only the cooking for him, and insists she should have booked just 2 hours instead of 4. But he nearly drops his phone when Do-hee casually tells him that Wonyi is known for doing exactly that, taking over the housework. That only frustrates him more. He struggles to understand why anyone would pay for a service and then stop the worker from doing the job. It feels completely awkward to him. Sensing his rising stress, Do-hee tries to calm him down, gently reminding him that at least he got a bit of rest. But Doha's not having it, he's clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. Then, just like that, the call cuts off. Rhetorically, Do-hee wonders out loud which parent her brother inherited his personality from, while her friends giggle, clearly not sharing in her frustration. The brunette with the pixie cut reminds her of a forgotten promise, to show Doha off on a video call, and even brings up the bribe that came with it. Do-hee admits she completely forgot. Then someone asks if Doha will be visiting the hospital today, but she quickly clarifies that he already stopped by the night before. Pixie cut lady can't help but wonder what time he even gets home from work, since she always falls asleep before he shows up. Another friend throws out a wild idea about contacting Doha's boss, but Do-hee shuts it down immediately. No way she's letting them get her brother fired. A knock at the door cuts through their chatter, and a middle-aged nurse walks in, greeting the group as the internationally notorious women, clearly amused. Esther. Pixie cut jumps up on one leg to hug her, apologizing for missing her wedding. Then she turns and shouts for someone to move the watermelon to make space for Esther to sit. Esther jokes that the whole crew showing up to her wedding in casts would have been a sight, and definitely a way to steal her thunder. The room erupts in laughter at the absurd image. The notorious group, still buzzing with laughter, shifts their attention to Esther, playfully asking about her honeymoon. But she waves it off. It's her second marriage and there are kids in the mix, so it wasn't a big deal. Instead, she hands out leftover wedding treats, skipping the others and making her way over to Do-hee, who's lounging on the bed with her leg in a large cast. Trying to make sense of the chaos that led to their injuries, Esther asks about what really went down in Hong Kong. One of the women jumps in to blame Do-hee, aka Sharon, in their rent-a-parent circle, for the whole mess. Another lady chimes in, complaining about a shoulder injury that got worse after the fall. Do-hee yells at them for throwing her under the bus but admits they were all having a great time watching the movie right before things went south. One friend teases her by declaring that once they're all healed, Sharon will be covering her shifts, and they all burst into laughter again. Amid the chaos, Do-hee leans in and whispers to Esther, asking for a quick chat outside. Once they step out, Do-hee hands Esther a bottle of cereal and mentions a room number. Esther recognizes it right away, Wonyi's apartment. Do-hee explains that her brother Doha has been covering her visits for the past 2 weekends. Esther lowers her voice, telling Do-hee to stop using her brother like that. Do-hee defends herself, claiming this is the first time and besides, Doha has his weekends free. But Esther just teases her more, calling her a cold-hearted office worker. Annoyed, Do-hee snatches back the cereal bottle, which only makes Esther laugh harder, amused by her dramatics. Then Do-hee switches gears and starts asking about Wonyi, her age, background, anything she can get. Esther rattles off some details but pauses when she notices Do-hee staring at her like a total creep. Things escalate when Do-hee suddenly yells at her for not sharing Wonyi's career info. Esther looks stunned, asking where she even got that idea from. But guess what? Our lovely Do-hee doesn't stop there. She dives deeper, bombarding Esther with questions about Wonyi's entire life, her family, childhood, relationship status, and everything in between, leaving Esther completely baffled. When Esther finally asks why she's so obsessed, Do-hee boldly announces her mission, matchmaking her little brother with Wonyi. She's convinced it's the perfect plan, especially since Doha has shown zero interest in the women at his firm and stubbornly chooses to stay single. Esther rolls her eyes, telling her to calm down with the dramatics, but Do-hee only gets more emotional. She cries out about the painful truth, how her brother has ended up using rent-a-parent services. That finally hits Esther. She seems to understand, gently takes the bottle back from Do-hee, and listens as she opens up further. Do-hee confesses that Doha grew up without their parents, and now she's a single mom herself, which just makes everything feel heavier. Instead, she brings the focus back to Doha. She shares her genuine wish, for him to fall in love with a woman from a warm, loving family, someone who could bring light into his life. The next morning, our female lead appears graceful and put together as she checks in with her secretary about the day's schedule. The assistant lays out her agenda for today and the upcoming week. But as Wonyi listens, a familiar pain returns. Without saying a word, she reaches into her bag, pulls out a pill, and takes it, hoping to feel just a little better. Later that day, Wonyi sits through her appointment, clearly in agony, as her client rants passionately about her vendetta against all cheaters. The room is tense, filled with emotion, when the secretary peeks in to say her goodbyes, but the client doesn't miss a beat, launching into a tirade about her child support. Barely holding herself together, Wonyi, stomach twisting in pain, calmly suggests the woman consider giving full custody to her husband. That sets the client off. She shoots up from her seat, furious, yelling at Wonyi for even making such a suggestion and snapping, "How old are you, anyway?" Wonyi freezes, stunned. But the woman doesn't wait for an answer. She storms out with absolute conviction, slamming the door behind her. Meanwhile, Wonyi presses a hand to her stomach, wishing the woman had come earlier, or not at all. Still wincing, she pulls out her phone and dials Sharon Stone. The older woman picks up immediately, and Wonyi doesn't waste time. She tells her straight up, she needs help, and fast. Sharon gasps, immediately concerned, asking what's wrong. Wonyi groans, explaining how sick she feels. But instead of sympathy, Sharon launches into a long-winded story about her latest hospital drama. Exhausted, Wonyi suggests she send someone else in her place. That gets Sharon's attention and she immediately offers Mr. Chin, Doha. But Wonyi, remembering how things ended the last time they met, hesitates. She quickly turns the idea down and asks for another option. Sharon promises to sort it out and get back to her. The call ends. Switching scenes, Doha is on the phone with his sister as she updates him on Wonyi's condition. He responds sarcastically, accusing her of probably faking it, says she's just desperate for attention. Do-hee rolls her eyes and brushes off his teasing. Then she threatens to send over Kim Chul-soo, who by the way, doesn't even exist, and that really riles him up. Back at his office, Doha switches into a more casual look. As he heads out, a colleague spots him and totally freaks out, clearly a crush. She compliments his casual style, and when he calls it messy, she just laughs and calls him a sexy beast. It's hard to tell where their playful banter is headed. A little later, Doha parks outside Wonyi's office, hesitating to call her. Inside, she's curled up in a corner, clearly in pain. He makes up his mind and goes in, only to be shocked by the sight of her curled, weak body. When he tries to wake her, she's unconscious and collapses onto him, leaving him visibly shaken. After a few tense minutes, she finally stirs awake. She thanks him for coming, and he asks if she's steady enough to walk, nodding toward his car. She tries to stand but nearly falls again. Seeing this, he apologizes before gently scooping her up into his arms, leaving her wide-eyed and stunned.